Good afternoon, students. Are you able to see me? Okay.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. We thought today we'll have some discussion on thyroid neoplasm. Need not necessarily be thyroid. I have included one case of thyrotoxicosis also in this. See, are you able to see this picture? This person, and I have written a little history for this photograph.
Yes, ma'am.
A 35-year-old male who hails from tribal area came with multinodular swelling in front of the neck of 5 years duration. I have mentioned that there is no pain or history of hypo or hyperthyroidism. No other complaints. What is the importance of coming from a tribal area and a thyroid swelling? Students, you can unmute and talk. See, I'm not going to talk to myself. You have to talk. You have to answer. Who will answer?
Yes.
You will chat or you
Deficiency
will
of iron.
unmute and talk.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So tribal areas, there is iodine deficiency in the water in hilly regions. So why does it produce swelling, thyroid swelling? How does it produce? Tell me the pathology. So, okay, there is deficiency of iodine in the water. So what? So what is happening in the body? When iodine is deficient, what is less?
Low levels of thyroid hormone stimulate TSH.
Okay, very good. So who is this speaking? Vasishta. Who? You must tell your name.
Nandan ma'am. This is Nandan ma'am.
Nandan. Okay, so once the thyroxine is low, the TSH goes up. So what? If TSH goes up, why should the gland increase in size? How?
Follicular hyperplasia.
So TSH is a trophic hormone. It increases the blood supply and makes the follicles grow. The follicles have receptors for the TSH, so it will make the follicles grow. So now you know how the tribals develop a goiter. What is goiter? Swelling of which glands? Enlargement of thyroid. So the enlarged thyroid gland is called a goiter. So now when a patient comes to you with a swelling, what is the thyroid region, students? What do you mean by thyroid region? See, you have a parotid region. Similarly, you have a thyroid region. So if you have a swelling in the thyroid region, for all practical purposes, it is a thyroid. And so once you have a swelling in the thyroid region, you have to go and ask for symptoms of hypo or hyperthyroidism or any malignant features. So how do you know that this swelling is in the thyroid region? What do you mean by thyroid region? Students?
Ma'am, neck region is cervical region is considered as thyroid region, ma'am.
Oh, neck has anterior, posterior, right side, left side, and then it has upper 1/3, middle 1/3, lower 1/3, front, back. So much is there. So many structures are jam packed in the neck. You can't say the neck region is a thyroid region. Don't you have an esophagus there, a trachea there, and you have 200 lymph nodes in the neck? So any swelling, neck swelling, first you have to think of lymph node only. But particularly if it is in the thyroid region, you should think of thyroid. So what is the thyroid region? Okay, below thyroid. What is this below TH, Kiranmai? You unmute yourself and answer. Middle 1/3 of anterior region of neck is called thyroid region. So you're partially correct. Your anterior neck is correct, but middle 1/3 is wrong. So it is lower 1/3. Okay, lower 1/3 of front of neck. Lower part of front of neck is called thyroid region. So once you have a swelling in the lower part of front of neck, and what is the other feature of thyroid swelling? Students? It moves with deglutition, isn't it? Yes,
Yes,
or no? Yeah. So a swelling in the lower part of front of neck and that which is moving with deglutition. If these two features are satisfied, you know that the swelling you are dealing with is a thyroid, right? So once you have a swelling in that region, now you have to ask the features like the physiological aspects, pathological aspects of the swelling. Physiological aspects means the functional capacity, whether you're dealing with a hypothyroid, a euthyroid, or a hyperthyroid feature. So immediately you must ask him whether he has any, what are the symptoms of hypothyroidism? Fatigue, okay, weight gain, lethargy, good. What else? Cold intolerance. Right. So it is cold intolerance, constipation. See, thyroid gland works on all the systems of the body, like CVS, CNS, GIT, everything is affected. Myalgia, even the musculoskeletal system. So each part of the body is influenced by the hyper functioning or hypo functioning of this thyroid gland. So you must include all the symptoms and ask. So as you rightly said, we will ask all these things. And not only, even the reproductive system, they will have unexplained infertility also, right? So, and then menstrual symptoms also. In case of females, there will be menstrual irregularities, right? Menorrhagia, right? Shama, you are correct. Menorrhagia in hypothyroidism and amenorrhea in hyperthyroidism. So, what are the symptoms of hyperthyroidism? Heat intolerance, weight loss, exophthalmos, tachycardia, diarrhea. So GIT is affected as diarrhea, and then the reproductive system, there will be amenorrhea, and then the CVS is affected. Tremors will be there, and the most significant symptom of hyperthyroidism is, one is, as you said, tachycardia, palpitations. The other one is increased appetite and loss of weight. So loss of weight in spite of having much appetite is a significant feature of hyperthyroidism, and also palpitations. So these two are the early features that will be rectified if you give them antithyroid drugs. That means the pulse rate comes down fast, the patient's appetite comes to control, and then the patient start gaining the weight. So you need not even take the thyroxine levels, blood levels, serum levels. You can physically, clinically follow the patient and then gauge his pulse rate and function, ask how he is regarding the weight, the appetite and all. So next, so no history of pain. Why should a patient with thyroid swelling have pain? What can be the cause? I have put the word pain. Students, thyroiditis, very good. So there can be inflammatory goiters. Tell me some inflammatory goiters you know of. Graves is not an inflammatory goiter. De Quervain's, yes, De Quervain's is an inflammatory goiter. Graves is a autoimmune goiter. Okay, you mean to say autoimmunity is a type of inflammatory? No, but it falls under toxic goiters, right? So we won't classify them as inflammatory goiters. So Hashimoto's is an inflammatory goiter. Riedl's thyroiditis, De Quervain's thyroiditis, and sometimes bacterial inflammation rarely also can occur. So if you classify the goiter you can classify them as how do you classify the goiters? Students, I have already told you two things. One is toxic goiter, the other one is inflammatory goiter. What are the other goiters? Very good. Anand, simple goiter is correct. Simple goiter, toxic goiter, inflammatory goiter, neoplastic goiter. Very good. So we have 4 types of goiters. They are simple goiter. Second one is toxic goiter. Third one is inflammatory goiter. Fourth one is neoplastic goiter. So once we know that there is a swelling in the lower part of neck which is moving up with deglutition, we know that it is thyroid very well, and we have to differentially diagnose between these 4 types of goiters. So that is why I have asked him whether he has any hypothyroid features, hyperthyroid features, or now inflammatory features. I have added the word pain. So there is no pain. Then next is neoplastic features. What are the features or symptoms that the patient can have if there is any neoplasia? That is a malignant neoplasm. As such, benign neoplasm will not have, we cannot differentiate it from any other type of goiters. Weight loss is not a feature of malignancy. See, thyroid malignancies are very, very indolent malignancy. That means the very, very slow growing. They may take 10 to 20 years to show up before and like features of malignancy. So they do not have features of malignancy like hard consistency, rapid growing. So they may not have. Still, they can be a carcinoma thyroid. So there can be only low. The first and foremost thing is, okay, very good. So you can classify them as local infiltration. So what is local infiltration? Into the surrounding structures. What are the surrounding structures that are there? In the neck, you have a trachea, you have an esophagus, you have a recurrent laryngeal nerve. So if there is any infiltration, and then you have lot of muscles in the neck, isn't it? So the symptoms will be hoarseness of voice, and there can be stridor. If it is infiltrating into the laryngeal cartilages or into the trachea, the patient will have a stridor, right? So very good. Stridor will be there, hoarseness of voice will be there, and then the patient. Then another thing is very good, as Sucharita told, lymph nodal enlargement. So a thyroid swelling with lymph nodal enlargement is a malignant thyroid, a papillary carcinoma of thyroid. There need not be a hardness, there need not be a fixity or infiltration into surrounding structures, but once the lymph nodes are involved, this is a case of carcinoma. So this is called thyroid paradox. We'll discuss it now. So now you know the symptoms that you have to elicit when a patient comes to you with a swelling in front of neck is features of hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, and features of local infiltration. Then systemic features. So this completes the local effect. Now comes the systemic features. Suppose this is a malignant swelling, where can they metastasize? Okay, bone, lungs, very good. So what is the carcinoma of thyroid that metastasizes to bones or a systemic metastasis? How do you classify the thyroid neoplasms? Thyroid neoplasms are very good. Follicular carcinoma of thyroid, follicular carcinoma of Mansi. These are all, I think, 9 students, if I'm correct, right? Mansi is 7 Joshita 7 right. So now, okay. So we have a differentiated, we have an undifferentiated carcinomas. Indifferentiated, we have a follicular and papillary. Papillary spreads with a lymph nodal metastasis, while the follicular has a hematogenous spread wherein it can go to lungs and bones, as you said. So once there are metastasis to lungs, there can be due to a pleural effusion, or the patient may have a consolidation which is not resolving, in which case they present as a cough expectoration, or any unexplained fever that is not resolving with cough expectoration. And then bone pains are the features, and bone swellings in the scalp, in the membranous bones, are the features of malignancy. So it's systemic features also you have to ask, right? So this is your history of present complaint. Now coming to your examination, can somebody examine, describe the swelling in this on the screen? Students, I want to somebody to examine this local examination of this swelling. Okay, we will finish the general exam. What general examination you will do in the case of thyroid swelling? How will what are the features, striking features in a hyper, as you already said, weight gain. Here it is weight loss of weight. Then how would the vital data altered in a case of thyroid swelling, in a thyrotoxicosis? So there can be increased pulse rate. Can pulse rate signify the presence of the severity of toxicosis? So you have to look for the facies. What is this facies? Crials. Crials. So how will be the pulse in case of a hypothyroidism, in case of a hyperthyroidism? Students? Okay. Pulse rate is slow in thyrotoxicosis. Joshita? Joshita? Yeah, yes, there is tachycardia. Yes, there is tachycardia, and then there can be, it may go as irregular pulse. They can have fibrillations, all sort of irregularities can occur in case of a even secondary thyrotoxicosis. Also, the cardiac manifestations are more than a CNS manifestations in case of a secondary toxic multinodular goiter. So you must always definitely check the pulse carefully. So normally the pulse, if it is 90 to normally 72 to 80. So if it is 90 to 100, it is mild thyrotoxicosis. 100 to 110, moderate thyrotoxicosis. Above 120 is severe thyrotoxicosis. So even without knowing the thyroxine levels, by seeing the patient loss of weight and then showing exophthalmos, tremors, increased sweat, and palpitations, you can know that you are dealing with a case of thyrotoxicosis. Not only that, anxiety. Somebody said faces. That is the disposition, how the patient sits, and so there is now the patient will be anxious. Sometimes they land up with psychiatric problems in psychiatry hospitals. Psychosis also can be there in a patient with thyrotoxicosis. So the pulse will be rapid, and then even the wide pulse pressure, high systolic blood pressure and low diastolic blood pressure. This produces a wide pulse pressure, and the pulse is also a collapsing hyperdynamic pulse. The nature of pulse is hyperdynamic or water hammer pulse, and then there is a widening of pulse pressure. So then there can be missed beats, ectopic beats, and also this is coming to the pulse. Not only so, what other things you will be examining in general examination? You said tremors. Very good. So in tremors, there will be fine intentional tremors, and the palms will be warm and moist. Why should they be warm and moist? What is the condition where there is a cold and moist palms? Students, why should they have warm palm and moist hands? In a thyrotoxicosis, why the yes, increased basal metabolic rate produces warm and moist. Moist is because why should there be excessive sweating in thyrotoxicosis? Because increased, this is sympathetic activity is increased, so there's a lot of sweating. Very good. So whenever you're taking a thyroid case, you have to see whether there is any, how is the pulse, whether any tremors are there, then how the palms, all these things you have to mention. So now coming to the your local examination. Can somebody examine this and describe, unmute and describe the swelling? Can you see on your screens, or it is too small on your screen? Nandan?
Ma'am, we can see, ma'am.
Then you describe the swelling, Nandan. See, how do you examine low? You have to do inspection, you have to do a palpation, and then percussion, then auscultation, just like any other swelling. So what are the methods of examining a thyroid swelling? You describe that swelling, whatever whatever you're seeing. What is the site?
On inspection, a single large swelling is seen on the right side of the neck, right lower part of the neck, anterior region of the neck, ma'am, which is of the size of 5 into 5 centimeters.
So first thing is it unilateral or bilateral? Are you able to see the other side of the neck also, or only to the one side, right side? Because see, thyroid
bilateral,
has two lobes.
Yes,
First, we have to put an anatomical diagnosis when you are dealing with thyroid. So anatomically, it's single lobe is involved or bilateral lobes are involved. First is that. So here we are seeing multiple. There is a large swelling of the size, shape, borders, extent. You have to mention. Then you have to, the characteristic feature of a thyroid swelling is movement with deglutition, right? That also you have to mention. After mentioning this, you have to say the extent. So how do you describe the extent of the swelling in a thyroid? Extent means superior border, inferior border, right border, and the left border. Here, superior border, till where it has, you are saying? Superior border here, it is up to thyroid cartilage, isn't it? Inferior border is up to the sternal notch, right? Clavicle, laterally, and middle it is the sternal notch. And then laterally it is going up to the anterior border of the left sternocleidomastoid, and right side it is going beyond the up to the posterior border sternocleidomastoid. It is crossed it, isn't it? So you have to mention like this. Most of the thyroid gland will never grow or enlarge beyond the upper border of thyroid cartilage. Why? Because what is the
Berry's ligament?
Berry's ligament is not at the upper border of thyroid cartilage. It is in the posteromedial aspect, and it is attached to the cricoid cartilage. So upper border, something more is attached.
Muscles are attached at the oblique line of thyroid cartilage.
Not muscle that is attached, maybe muscles also, but it is a capsule of the thyroid. The thyroid, how is the capsule of thyroid gland formed?
From pretracheal fascia.
Very good. The pretracheal fascia forms the capsule of the gland, which is attached to the thyroid. This capsule is well developed in the upper part of the lobe, upper part of the gland. So it is very tough, and the gland cannot grow beyond that. But this capsule is deficient inferiorly and posteriorly when the gland grows beyond the lower border, and it may even extend into the retrosternal region. Understood? You understood? This is very, very important. The lower border, getting below the lower border is very important. As you do and getting above the swelling, in case of a scrotal swelling, here you have to be very much keen in seeing the nature of the lower border, because we want to know if there is any retrosternal extension. Accordingly, we'll plan the surgery. So you must always check whether you're able to put your finger underneath the lower border. Ask the patient to do swallowing and then see if you can put your finger beneath it. So this is called getting below the lower body. It is very, very important. You have to check. What is the sign that tells that there is retrosternal extension? How will you do the test? Somebody?
Rising arms above shoulder.
What is the name of the test? Kiran Mai? Some other people? Nandan seems to know. Pemberton sign. Very good. Kiran Mai has come up with the Pemberton sign. So Pemberton sign is done by, as Nandan said, raising the hands above the head and keeping them close to the ears. This, what will be the appearance of the patient if you do this test? Akila?
Face will become red.
Flushed face. Very good. It becomes congested. Why should it become congested? Because it is squeezed into the upper part of the mediastinum, the superior mediastinum, and it compresses the great vessels, the brachiocephalic vein and all there. So this produces flushed look, prominent veins, flushed and congested look, and sometimes even breathless the patient. So this is the signs that will tell you that there is a retrosternal extension of the swelling. So now, so you have seen the site, the size, the shape, the borders, the extent, movement with deglutition. So you have to come and see the skin over the swelling and the surface of the swelling. How is the skin here? What will you look for on the skin over the swelling? You have to look for any prominent veins and then any pulsations. Where do you have the pulsations? Very good. Saima is correct. Pulsations and prominent veins. Where do you look for the pulsations and where do you look for the prominent veins? Over the swelling and in the presternal region also. There can be. I'll show some pictures where there are prominent veins. And then pulsations normally you find at the upper pole of the swelling. Why do you find abnormal pulsations? Sometimes you can even see feel the thrill in your palpation, and mostly it is in the upper pole. Why only in the upper pole of the swelling? Increased vascularity. What is the vessel that is present at the upper pole? Students? Superior thyroid artery. Very good. So superior thyroid artery is present, which is more superficial than the inferior thyroid artery, and most of the blood supply of the thyroid gland is through the superior thyroid artery. So once the gland increases in size and vascularity is increased, mostly in a Graves' disease, you find this increased pulsations in the upper pole, and you may even feel the thrill. So you must look for on the skin. You look for any infiltration, fixing. Suppose it's a malignant goiter, the growth may infiltrate into the skin, where you find the skin is fixed or raised into folds, or sometimes prominent veins. A previous surgical scar can be there, and then pulsation. Now coming to the surface. Surface, what are you going to see? We will see we will describe. How do we describe the surface? Smooth, nodular, and then sometimes lobulated, bossulated. This is how we describe a surface. Smooth surface is in a colloid goiter, diffuse parenchymatous goiter, or a colloid goiter in the early stages of enlargement. These are forms of endemic goiters in iodine deficient areas where you have a smooth surface. Then nodular surfaces, see here you can see elevations and depressions. Isn't it? some elevated, some depressed areas. When you find those areas, we call them as nodular. When they're more than 2 centimeters, the elevations and depression, we call them as lobulated. More than that, we have a bossylated appearance, knobby, they also describe. So you remember, so whether it is a smooth or whether it is a nodular or lobulated. So you have to describe the surface. Next, you also have to observe the opposite side. You must not forget, if you have any nodule or swelling on one side of the neck, you see for the opposite side of the neck also. Then after completing this inspection, that is, you have seen the site, size, shape, borders, extent, skin of the swelling, and then surface. Then you have looked for pulsations. Then you have also checked for the deglutition. Now come to the any other swellings in the other part of the neck. Now coming to the palpation. So now palpation, how do we start palpation? So palpation, you have to start with the local rise of temperature, tenderness. If there is increased vascularity, the gland may be warm, as in case of a Graves' thyrotoxicosis. And then, so warm in the sense increased vascularity, or inflammatory goiter also, there can be a warmth. Now coming to the palpation. Now inspectory findings of the site, size and shape have to be confirmed. Here there are some methods of palpation. That is, one is standard method of palpation of thyroid gland. Then we have a Pigellow's method. Then we have a Cryal's method. We have a Lahey's method. So we should know what are the methods. So what is the standard method of palpation of thyroid gland is, after you confirm your site, size and shape, then you go behind the patient, stand behind the patient, and then you place the 2 thumbs on the nape of the neck of the patient. Then the 4 fingers you encircle and place them anteriorly, and then you just palpate the swelling with the fingers, and while the patient is swallowing. This will tell us the nature of the surface, whether it is smooth or there is any micronodularity or there are any palpable nodules. Because nodular nature of the swelling is an irreversible stage of the disease. You must now think of what to do. Your decision will depend upon this, your palpatory findings. So this is called standard method of palpation. Now what is Pigellow's method? Students, what is Pigellow's method? Nandan? You know or you don't know? Students?
Don't know, ma'am.
Shaima knows. Nandan, Shaima is saying patient should be asked to keep the hands on the back of the head. Harshita is saying clasped palms placed on the back of the neck. So this is mostly, thyroid swellings are more common in females, and male thyroid is thought of as a malignant thyroid. So first thing is you have to exclude malignancy once you see a male thyroid. But of course, this person is coming from a tribal area, still he can have a multinodular goiter. So often the females are short, they have a short neck and a fatty neck. In that case, we do not know whether really they're having a thyroid swelling or it is a thick fatty skin. In those people, you have to do this Pigellow's method. Not in everyone that you do a Pigellow's method. So you ask the patient to extend the neck and then place the clasped hands behind the occiput region and push the head against the palms. So this will stretch the neck and you can see the swelling properly. If at all there is swelling, if nothing is visible, that means it's only a fatty neck. So this is called Pigellow's method of palpation. Now what is Cryle's method, students? There is Cryle's method of palpation.
And patient should be asked to swallow something.
Okay, patient is asked to swallow. Good, correct. Then what? So you will be doing some method of palpation, no? So in standard method, you are standing behind the patient. In Pigellow's, you are asking the patient to do something. In Cryle's method, you stand in front of the patient and you place 2 thumbs on the swelling and encircle the neck with the 4 fingers. Keep the 4 fingers on the nape of the neck. Keep 2 thumbs on the swelling and ask the patient to swallow. Now, if there is any nodularity, you can keenly and carefully palpate. So this is called Cryle's method. Mansi has said. Mansi and Kiranmayi, Shaima, very good. All of these people they seem to know. So this is Cryle's method. So before you rule out any nodularity, you have to confirm with the Cryle's method. So standard method of palpation, then you have a Cryle's method of palpation, right? So now with this, you have to confirm your inspectory findings of size, shape, borders, extent, whether it is on the opposite side, whether opposite lobe is palpable or not. Then after all this, what is the size of the nodule? What is the consistency of the nodules? Whether they're firm, they're hard, they're soft, right? So soft, if the swelling, if the nodule is soft, what is your inference? If it is a nodule is hard, what is your inference?
Colloid goiter, soft.
Very good. In colloid goiter, initial stages, it can be soft. But softness does not indicate a benign nature of thyroid gland. Why? Hard is not carcinoma. Soft can be carcinoma. Hashimoto's firm. Yes, you're right, Joshita. But hard is not carcinoma. Even soft cystic swelling can be a carcinoma. Why? A firm swelling can be a cystic swelling. A soft swelling can be a carcinoma. Why? You know, papillary thyroid carcinoma has cystic degeneration. So once a soft swelling is there, it may not be a colloid cyst. It may be even a papillary carcinoma of thyroid. You understood? Sometimes soft cystic swelling, cyst can be felt as firm because it is under the tough deep fascia of the neck. Understood? So you cannot decide whether the swelling is a malignant swelling or a benign swelling basing on consistency in case of thyroid, because hard swelling, hard nodule, it is not carcinoma. Why? Because the hardness is due to macrocalcifications because of hemorrhages, long-standing hemorrhages in a long-standing multinodular goiter. Understood? So, and then your Riddle's thyroiditis, which is not a malignancy at all, it can be hard. So hardness is not a feature of carcinoma of the thyroid. So in palpation, you have to tell the inspectory findings of size, shape, borders, extent. Then you have to tell the consistency, and then you confirm whether there is any movement with deglutition and getting below the border. Next comes the effect of the swelling on the adjacent structures. What are the adjacent structures? Here we have a trachea, you have a carotid, isn't it? So trachea, how do you assess trachea? Trachea with 3-finger test, trial sign you will see, and even in auscultation also you can check the position of trachea. when you keep your stuck on the swelling and ask the patient to take deep breathing, you can hear more distinctly on one side if it is shifted to that side. So here, I think here you can see there is shift of trachea, if I am correct. Here I'm seeing only small swelling. So tracheal position is very, very important. Now coming to the, in palpation, you also have to look for lymph nodes. What is the lymphatic drainage of thyroid? Students, of course, you didn't have thyroid classes. It is the mid-jugular, lower jugular, and anterior cervical. That is level 6. So level 3, level 4, level 6 nodes are the lymphatic drainage areas of thyroid. Level 3 is mid-jugular, level 4 lower jugular, and anterior, pretracheal, paratracheal, prelaryngeal are level 6 nodes. So level 6 you cannot palpate. Level 3 and 4 you can palpate. But then the nodules in thyroid also are like nodular swellings. How do you differentiate a nodule from a lymph node? A nodule in the lobe from a lymph node. Clinically, how can you differentiate, students? See, if a nodule is in the thyroid lobe, the thyroid moves up with deglutition, so the nodule also moves with deglutition. The lymph nodes are outside the pretracheal fascia, so they do not move with deglutition. A nodule not moving with deglutition means it is a lymph nodal enlargement. So you must always check for any lymph nodes. As I said, even if the gland is soft, cystic, presence of lymph nodes will change your diagnosis to a carcinoma of the thyroid, probably a papillary carcinoma of thyroid. So once a local examination is complete, now you have to go for systemic examination, that is your CVS, CNS and all. Then you also have to see the, if it is a case of thyrotoxicosis, you have to look for the eye signs, right? So now let us see the other. So here I'm not able to see here how to. Are you able to see the full? I have kept up another case. See, a 40-year-old female came with history of swelling in front of neck of 5 years duration, gradually increasing in size. Since 3 months, she is having palpitations. Her epithet is normal. Her pulse rate is 110 per minute. Heart and lungs are clear. On palpation, there are multiple nodules which are firm in consistency in both lobes of thyroid. Radioiodine scan revealed the following picture. So now what is the diagnosis basing on the history? Students, somebody unmute and discuss the case. Kiranmai or Nandan, Akhila, somebody unmute and talk. You can see I have given a 40-year-old female. That means she's middle-aged, right? And then she is having 5 years long swelling in front of neck. And then I have also described it as a multiple nodules. That means multinodular goiter of 5 years duration. But since 3 months, she is having symptoms of thyrotoxicosis like palpitations. And I haven't particularly mentioned that epithet is normal. Epithet and all are not much changed in case of a secondary thyrotoxicosis. So this is a case of toxic multinodular goiter. Have you understood, students? And then you can see the radioiodine uptake scan showing hot areas. Hot areas. So this is a case of toxic multinodular goiter. See, in a case of, you must know what is a primary thyrotoxicosis and a secondary thyrotoxicosis. In a primary thyrotoxicosis, the gland as such is normal. It is made to function to the maximum. Hyperfunctioning normal gland is a primary thyrotoxicosis. It is hyperfunctioning because of presence of thyroid stimulating immunoglobulins, which resemble TSH receptor, TSH molecule. So they go and bind to the TSH receptor and stimulate the gland just like a TSH hormone. Only that the half-life of TSH is only 5 hours, while that of thyroid stimulating immunoglobulins is 12 hours. So it is a long stimulation, hyperfunctioning of the gland, and more production of a thyroxine. So the gland is normal absolutely, but in case of a multinodular goiter, the gland is abnormal. There is an endemic goiter which has turned from the stages colloid, diffuse parenchymatous. Now it is a multinodular goiter because of fluctuating levels of TSH. Now one of the nodules have become, one of the areas have become hyper-autonomous and they started functioning, secreting the thyroxine more. So this is a toxicity, secondary thyrotoxicity. The most common complication of a multinodular goiter is toxicity, secondary thyrotoxicosis. 30 to 35% of the multinodular goiters untreated land up with secondary thyrotoxicosis. The other complications being cystic degeneration, hemorrhagic degeneration, calcifications, and rarely, in less than 5%, malignant transformation, that is follicular carcinoma of the thyroid. So here in this case, we have a case of toxic multinodular goiter. So when there is toxicity and nodularity, immediately you have to check for the areas of toxicity, and then you do a radioiodine uptake scan. So radioiodine uptake scan indication is to toxicity and nodularity. Otherwise, you will not do radioiodine uptake scan. Only other indication for doing a radioiodine scan is searching for metastasis in case of a carcinoma of the thyroid post-operatively. You do a total thyroidectomy and then you give a radioiodine and then search for metastasis elsewhere in the body. So the two indications for doing a radioiodine scan is one, toxic multinodular goiter, two, searching for metastasis. Right, students? So you understood this case? Okay. Now you see this one. So here you have a patient, 45-year-old male, who came with swelling in front of neck of 2 years duration. The swelling is rapidly increasing in size since 3 months, and he is also having pain in the swelling and hoarseness of voice. There is also swelling on the left side of forehead since several years. He is not a smoker or alcoholic. No other significant history. So what is your opinion on this history? Students, anybody want to comment? What do you think? Unmute and talk, students.
Follicular carcinoma, ma'am.
Why do you think it is follicular carcinoma, Vamsi? Any doubt? Because of the swelling in the scalp? Students?
Yes,
Harshita, malignancy is good, correct. So because he is having swelling, 2 years duration, rapidly growing since 3 months, and he is having pain in the swelling because of local infiltration, and also he is having hoarseness of voice because of recurrent laryngeal nerve infiltration. I have mentioned to confuse, he is not a smoker or alcoholic. So why did because I'm giving you a hint that this can be a lymph nodal mass, right? You understood? And then I have also told he is having a swelling in the left side of forehead of several years, not 2 years. Even prior to this, he is having. So what is the place of that swelling and what is the spotter? What could be the swelling? Is it a place where the suture lines are closing? What could it be? Metastasis to skull. So you mean to say the metastasis has developed first and then the thyroid gland swelling? So this can be a second one, dermoid cyst. Yes, this must be a dermoid cyst. So now this is a clear-cut case of carcinoma of thyroid, because as you can see locally, their skin infiltration is there, prominent veins is there, tracheal shift is there, and lymph nodal swellings are there. Can you see the lymph nodes there? So once the lymph nodes get blocked, other lymph nodal basins also get involved. Not only the level 3, level 4, and level 6. Even here, level 2 nodes are also involved. So have you seen this, students? So how will you manage this patient? How will you confirm your diagnosis? I have given you diagnosis as a carcinoma of thyroid. Since lymph nodes are involved, what is the carcinoma of thyroid? Which lymph nodal involvement? Students? Papillary carcinoma of thyroid. Very good. Now, how will you proceed? How will you confirm your diagnosis? See, there are three streams of types of investigation. First and foremost, it is a confirmation of your diagnosis. So, how will you confirm? You are thinking in terms of a carcinoma of thyroid. So, how will you confirm? You want to do an FNAC, but even before FNAC, do you want to take a guidance of any imagiology? Very good. And then ultrasound scan of the neck, and then guided FNAC you have to take. Then see here you are seeing infiltration into skin, tracheal shift, multiple lymph nodes involved. Probably a Berry sign may be there or may not be there. Any other investigation you want to do apart from ultrasound? Yes, CT scan of the neck can be done to know the relation of the structures, whether the carotid sheath is encased, because to see the operability and to see the stage of the disease, you have to stage the disease. And T and M, to do the staging, CT scan is a better option. Very good. So now you have to do a first ultrasound scan, guided FNAC, then you have to do a CT scan, then you think of operability, whether it can be operated. Always it is the surgery is the first line of treatment for carcinoma of thyroid. Then here you also have to see the fitness of the patient. So first you have done confirmation with an ultrasound guided FNAC. Second, you have staged with a CT scan. Then third one is fitness of the patient for any procedure by doing thyroid profile and other general investigations. Accordingly, basing on the results, you have to go for a total thyroidectomy with a modified neck dissection on the right side. If there are, since we are seeing the right side of the right-sided nodes. Do you agree with me, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now after total next, let us see the next slides. See here you can see, are you able to see, this is a trachea, the black shadow is the trachea, and this is a gland, and you have glands, we have multiple nodes. Are you able to see? See, so clearly you can see, this is the carotid sheath, you can see muscles, you can see, this is the vertebral body, everything you can see so nicely. Here you see the tracheal lumen is wavy, which indicates that there is infiltration into trachea, and this side we are not able to clearly visualize the carotid sheath. So there is an encasement of carotid sheath here on the left, on this side. So all this you can so nicely see in the CT scan. So now here we have another short case. A 25-year-old male came with history of painless swelling in the front of the neck with of 2 years duration. There is no history of fever, no history of similar swellings elsewhere. The swelling is soft, cystic, oral cavity is normal, no other swellings. I just put oral cavity is normal. Can you know, see what is the location of this swelling? Basing on that, can you tell the diagnosis and the test you want to do? What is the thyroid region, students? What is the thyroid region? I told lower part of front of neck. But where is this swelling?
Midline, middle 1/3.
Midline and above. Just it is above, even above the middle 1/3. It is subhyoid. So, and this is moving with deglutition, and you have a swelling in the subhyoid region. Yes, it is a thyroglossal cyst, Kiranmayi. Yes, Sucharita, Joshita, very good. Akila, all of you are correct. Then which test you want to do once you think of a thyroglossal cyst? What is the clinical test that you have to do? What is the specific? The swelling. So moves with protrusion of tongue. So the swelling moves not only with deglutition but also with protrusion of tongue. So now if you have a swelling in the middle 1/3 or upper 1/3 moving with deglutition, then only you do this test of protrusion with tongue, not the lower swellings. What are the locations of thyroglossal cysts, students? What is the most common location of thyroglossal cyst? Very good. Subhyoid is the most common location, followed by suprahyoid. It can go as high as the base of the tongue. Next is the in the region of thyroid cartilage. In thyroid when it is in the region of thyroid cartilage, generally it will be slightly to one side of the neck. So when you have a swelling in the upper part or the middle 1/3, which is moving with deglutition, you immediately you have to do a this tongue protrusion, whether it's moving with the protrusion of tongue. You have to see why will it move with protrusion of tongue. What is a thyroglossal cyst? Can you tell me what is a thyroglossal cyst? Why should it be present at the base of the tongue also, a thyroglossal cyst? Origin from base of tongue. Why should it arise? Thyroglossal cyst means something related to thyroid. And the thyroid is present in the lower part of front of neck. Why is it in the upper part? Remnant of thyroglossal duct. Very good. It is called a tubulodermoid. Thyroglossal cyst is a form of tubulodermoid. It is developing from a tract which is used for a development, thyroglossal tract. So what is the extension of thyroglossal tract? Any relation with tongue? Foramen cecum. Yes. Nasima, it develops from median thyroid diverticulum, which develops from the floor of the developing hypopharynx. This median thyroid diverticulum is between two lingual tubercles. The tongue has two different anterior 2/3 and posterior 1/3. The lingual tubercles, in between these two, the junction is the foramen cecum. At this junction is the median thyroid diverticulum. This median thyroid diverticulum grows caudally along the developing hypopharynx, then the trachea, and at the second or third tracheal rings, it expands, forming the gland. So once it reaches the tracheal rings, the gland totally disappears. The duct totally disappears. But if this persists, this duct is lined by epithelium, so this forms a cyst. The lining of the epithelium is columnar. It also has thyroid follicles. It has lymphoid follicles. So it gets infected and it can spontaneously rupture, forming a thyroglossal fistula. So thyroglossal fistula is acquired from a thyroglossal cyst. Well, thyroglossal cyst is a congenital. It's a form of tubulodermoid. So now see this here, you can see how nicely this is a cyst. Are you able to see this hypoechoic or anechoic capsulated swelling that you can see at the hyoid bone, subhyoid region? This is a thyroglossal cyst with peripheral vascularity. So now if you take an FNAC, you may find colloid with the cholesterol crystals. The hallmark of thyroglossal cyst is cholesterol crystals, which are chipped squares. So they have a square chipped at one end. That is the hallmark for thyroglossal cyst. So columnar epithelium, colloid with cholesterol containing fluid, right? So that what is the treatment? What is the differential diagnosis for the cyst here in the neck anterior part? Anterior part. Very good. So pretracheal, prelaryngeal lymph nodes. They also move with deglutition because they're attached to the trachea and the larynx. Thyroglossal cyst also is moving with deglutition, but they are not soft cystic. They can be firm, right? Any other? It can be need not necessarily be a tubular dermoid. Simple dermoid midline structure can also be there. Very good. Next is a bursa, thyroid bursitis. There can be a bursa in the thyroid region. The bursa can then there can be a colloid cyst in the superior pole of the thyroid. Can it be a see? Very good. Sebaceous bursa also you people have answered. Right? So now what is the treatment for a thyroglossal cyst? What is the treatment for a thyroglossal cyst?
Excision and removal up to foramen cecum.
Very good. So that surgery has a name as everyone is giving here. It is cyst trunks operation. You have no we don't marsupialize, Mansi. You have to excise the whole tract. It goes through it traverses the hyoid bone also. So you have to break the hyoid bone in the middle 1/3, remove along with the tract up to the base of the tongue. Through the mylohyoid muscle, you have to go, and up to the base of the tongue, you have to go and excise, because if you leave anything, there can be a recurrence. This is called cyst trunks operation. Very good. So, see here I have a female. See, you can see a swelling here. Are you able to see a swelling here in the scalp?
Yes, ma'am.
And there is a small nodule in the neck. This nodule is moving up with deglutition, right? See, I have small history. A 70-year-old female came with painless swelling in the scalp, in the front, near frontal hairline of 6-month duration. No other history. She's a smoker. She's not having any diabetes, hypertension. The swelling is hard, fixed, and immobile. An examination of neck revealed a nodule in the paratracheal region, which is moving up with deglutition. So systemic examination is normal. So what is your opinion? What is the diagnosis? See, here is a nodule which is moving up with deglutition. That means it must be a nodule in the thyroid gland. Though clinically there is no apparent nodule, but on palpation we could pick up a nodule. So now can you relate this nodule with this scalp swelling, which is a bony swelling, because it's a hard fixed? Students? Okay. So this can be a follicular carcinoma of thyroid with a secondaries in the bone, metastasis, right? So now how will you manage this patient? First, you have to confirm your diagnosis. Always confirm your diagnosis. So you have to do an ultrasound scan, neck, and take an FNAC from this. And then you also do a CT scan, see the extent of the swelling. If possible, take a biopsy. Then you have to plan what do you do for the primary, what will you do for the secondary metastasis. For the primary, you have to do a total thyroidectomy. Then for the secondary, what will you do? You can do either a metastasectomy. If inoperable, you do give an external irradiation, the bone, or First, excision of the bone metastasis is the treatment, then followed by radioiodine scan, and then searching for other metastasis. If there are any metastasis, then you have to do a radioiodine ablation, radioiodine ablation, ablative therapy. Okay. So now here I'm showing you a radioiodine scan. Can you comment on these pictures? What is the first one? What is the second one? What is the third one?
Cold nodule, ma'am.
Very good. The first one is a cold nodule.
The middle is normal one, ma'am. Normal.
Very good. Normal warm thyroid gland. Right. The third one? You can see faintly the outline of the lobe, but
yes,
you can see particularly one hot area. So what is that? Is it cold, warm, or hot?
Hot.
Hot nodule. So the first one is a cold nodule. The second one is a warm normal thyroid gland. Third one is a hot nodule. So this is a toxic nodule, right? So now how do you do the radioiodine uptake scan? Akhila, it is a hot spot. It is a hot nodule. How will you do a radioiodine uptake scan? I have already told you the indications are toxic nodularity. Second one is metastatic workup. Only these are the two indications. How will you administer? 123, I-123. Okay. What is I-123? What is I-131? So radioisotopes. If it is half-life differs, I-131 has a long half-life, while I-23 is a short half-life. Since I-131, both are given orally, so depending on the availability, I-131 or I-123 is given. If I-131 is it is given in the form of a capsule, the patient is asked to swallow and then come after 24 hours, and then you take a picture. You scan the patient neck and the whole body with a gamma camera. So you see, iodine is a radioisotope, no? It emits gamma rays. So you can pick the gamma rays by a gamma camera and you can see this picture. Not only in the neck, wherever there is thyroid in the form of metastasis. Even the metastases are functioning and they pick up the iodine. So they are shown as hot spots. Okay, scintigraphy, right? So here you can see all these areas. Suppose you find it is mostly in the bones, that is there. You can find in the lymph nodes sometimes this iodine uptake if it is a metastasis. So this is the radio. After 24 hours, you ask them to come. While it is a I-123, you can take after half an hour. Even technetium can be used for scanning the thyroid gland, because technetium is taken up by the thyroid gland just as iodine is taken up. But iodine is used to prepare, it will get incorporated in the thyroxine that is secreted. The patient will have this for 8 days in the body. Well, technetium is not incorporated and immediately it is excreted. So technetium is given IV, and then within half an hour, the body is scanned for any uptake by the thyroid, whether it's a metastasis or an active gland, right? So these are the indications, and then you have to see. You must know what are the normal levels and all. Okay. So now, okay, with this, I will stop. I think it is 6 o'clock. In next class, I will talk about the other aspects of the thyroid, how to follow up the patient and all, and the classification. Okay. Thank you so much, dear students, for your patient hearing and good active participation. All of you go open your belly lab and read thyroid. It is given very extensively. You must know how to class, what is a normal thyroid gland anatomy, physiology, secretion of thyroxine, what are the steps of thyroxine secretion, and then you also have to know the various types of goiters and management. Thank you so much, my dear students.
Thank
Bye.
you, ma'am.